As Sarah closed her laptop for the evening, the familiar ache of another long workday settled between her shoulders. Through her apartment window, the city lights of Seattle twinkled like earthbound stars, while a gentle rain tapped against the glass in an irregular lullaby. She had lived in this high-rise apartment for 3 years now, but tonight something felt different. A subtle shift in the air, perhaps, or maybe just the particular quality of the autumn darkness that seemed to hold secrets in its depths. Rising from her desk, she walked to the window and pressed her forehead against the cool glass. 30 stories below, the street lights cast pools of warm light on the wet pavement, and late-night pedestrians hurried past with umbrellas tilted against the wind. The scene reminded her of an impressionist painting, all soft edges and blended colors. Sarah's breath fogged the window as she watched a particularly bright star peek through a break in the clouds. Or was it a planet? She had never been very good at astronomy, despite her grandmother's patient attempts to teach her the constellations during those long-ago summer nights in Maine. The memory brought an unexpected wave of peace, and she found herself smiling at her reflection in the glass. Turning away from the window, she moved through her nighttime routine with practiced ease: a warm shower, chamomile tea steeped exactly 4 minutes, and her softest pajamas. As she settled into bed, she noticed something unusual on her nightstand. A small, leather-bound book she didn't remember purchasing or receiving. Its cover was worn smooth with age, the color of autumn leaves, and when she picked it up, it felt pleasantly warm in her hands. Opening the book, she found no title page, no publisher's information, just handwritten text in an elegant, flowing script that seemed to shimmer slightly in the soft light of her bedside lamp. The first page read, "For those who seek the garden of dreams, where midnight blooms and starlight streams, turn these pages soft and slow, and let the evening's magic flow." Sarah ran her finger along the words, feeling the slight indentation where pen had met paper. The book had a curious scent, like rain-washed earth and night-blooming jasmine. She settled more comfortably against her pillows, pulled her duvet up to her chin, and began to read.
There exists, in the space between sleeping and waking, a garden unlike any other. It blooms only in the deepest part of night, when the moon is a silver coin tossed high into the velvet sky, and the world has grown quiet enough to hear the whispers of dreams taking flight.
As Sarah read, the usual sounds of the city seemed to fade away, replaced by the gentle rustle of invisible leaves and the distant song of nightingales. The words on the page drew her in, each sentence wrapping around her like a soft blanket, each paragraph carrying her further from the worries of her day. The story spoke of hidden pathways that appeared only by starlight, of flowers that bloomed in impossible colors, and of a wise old owl who kept the garden's most precious secrets. It told of a fountain whose waters flowed with liquid moonlight, and of benches carved from clouds where weary dreamers could rest and watch the aurora dance across the midnight sky. As she turned each page, Sarah felt herself growing lighter, as if the story itself was gradually lifting the weight of consciousness from her mind. The words began to float and dance before her eyes, rearranging themselves into new patterns that spoke of peace and rest. As Sarah continued reading, the words seemed to lift off the page like delicate moths, dancing in the soft lamplight before settling back onto the paper. The garden's first guardian was a butterfly with wings of stained glass, each panel catching and transforming the moonlight into pools of gentle color. It drifted through the air with the unhurried grace of a leaf on a summer breeze, leaving trails of luminescent dust that sparkled like scattered stars before slowly fading away.
Welcome, dreamer.
The butterfly seemed to whisper, though it made no sound Sarah could hear with her ears. Rather, the words appeared in her mind like ripples in still water.
You found your way to us at last.
The path before her wound through tall grasses that swayed in a windless dance, their silver-tipped blades humming a soft lullaby. Each blade caught the starlight differently, creating a symphony of gentle illumination that pulsed in time with Sarah's increasingly peaceful breathing. The air was thick with the scent of night-blooming flowers, lavender and moonflowers, evening primrose and jasmine, all releasing their sweet perfume into the velvet darkness. As she followed the winding path deeper into the garden, Sarah noticed that time moved differently here. Moments stretched like honey dripping from a spoon, sweet and slow and golden. The usual rapid thoughts that raced through her mind began to settle, like leaves drifting to the bottom of a clear pond. She came upon a clearing where dozens of oversized cushions, seemingly made from woven moonbeams and cloud stuff, floated a few inches above the ground. They bobbed gently in place, inviting rest. Nearby, a fountain made of mirror-smooth silver played a melody with its falling waters, each droplet chiming like the gentlest of bells as it returned to the pool below. An ancient willow tree stood sentinel at the edge of the clearing, its curtain of leaves shimmering with tiny lights that might have been fireflies or might have been stars caught in its branches. Among its roots was a small door, just large enough for a cat to pass through, crafted from what appeared to be mother-of-pearl and dark wood that had been polished by centuries of dreamers' hands. The glass-winged butterfly alighted on a nearby flower, its wings catching the light in hypnotic patterns.
Every door in the garden leads to a different dream,
it explained in its soundless voice.
Some lead to memories wrapped in comfort like warm blankets on winter nights. Others open onto wishes that haven't yet found their way into words. And some,
Here the butterfly's wings pulsed with a soft blue light.
some lead to the deepest kind of rest, where healing happens and peace takes root.
Sarah found herself drawn to a bench that seemed to be carved from clouds and starlight. As she sat, she felt the day's tensions dissolving like morning mist in sunlight. The bench moved ever so slightly, like being rocked in a grandmother's chair, and she could have sworn she heard distant humming, the kind of wordless melody that speaks directly to the heart. From this vantage point, she could see other parts of the garden stretching out in all directions. There was a maze made of tall hedges that shifted and changed when you weren't looking directly at them, their leaves shimmering with soft purple and silver light. A small pond reflected not the sky above but rather dreams of other skies, other moons, other possibilities that hung like ripe fruit just out of reach. Near the pond, a cluster of flowers unlike any Sarah had ever seen swayed in perfect harmony. Their petals were transparent like the finest silk, and within each bloom, tiny scenes played out, children laughing, waves lapping at distant shores, clouds drifting across summer skies. These were memory flowers, the butterfly explained, each one containing a moment of pure contentment preserved like amber. The air grew softer, if that was possible, and Sarah felt herself sinking deeper into the story, deeper into the garden's embrace. The words on the page began to blur slightly at the edges, not in a concerning way, but rather like the softening of reality that comes just before sleep claims consciousness. The words continued to flow across the pages, their edges growing softer, more fluid, like watercolors bleeding into silk. As Sarah sat on the cloud-carved bench, the glass-winged butterfly drifted closer, its wings now pulsing with the same rhythm as her heartbeat. Beyond the willow grove, it whispered in its thought voice, "Lie the dream pools. Would you like to see them?" She nodded, finding that here in the garden, movement felt different, as if she were floating through warm, gentle currents of air. Rising from the bench, she followed the butterfly down a path lined with flowers that glowed with a blue-silver light so soft it seemed to come from somewhere beyond the visible spectrum. The path curved and wound its way through stands of trees whose leaves were made of twilight and whose branches reached up to catch falling stars. Each star they caught would dissolve into a shower of luminescent drops that fell like rain. Yet Sarah felt no wetness, only a sensation of profound peace that seemed to sink directly into her bones. The dream pools appeared gradually, like memories emerging from morning mist. They were perfectly round and still, their surfaces like polished obsidian until you looked directly into them. Then they became transparent, revealing depths that seemed to go on forever. Each pool held a different kind of dream. The first pool she approached rippled ever so slightly, and within its depths she saw comfortable rooms filled with soft lamplight, overstuffed chairs, and shelves of well-loved books. The scene radiated such profound contentment that Sarah could almost feel the weight of a favorite book in her hands, almost smell the faint dusty sweet scent of old pages and leather bindings.
This is the pool of quiet moments,
the butterfly explained, its wings now glowing with a warm amber light.
It holds all the peaceful evenings that have ever been or will be. Some dreamers come here just to float in the sensation of having nowhere to be and nothing to do but rest.
Moving to the next pool, Sarah saw it was filled with what looked like liquid moonlight. Beneath its surface, clouds drifted past like schools of silver fish.
The pool of floating dreams,
the butterfly murmured.
Here, gravity becomes merely a suggestion. Many find their deepest rest while drifting among the clouds.
The third pool seemed to contain an entire galaxy, stars spinning in slow, hypnotic spirals. As Sarah watched, the stars began to pulse in a rhythm that matched her breathing, slowing it gently, naturally. Her eyelids grew heavier as she gazed into the cosmic dance, each breath becoming longer, deeper. Near the pools stood a pavilion that seemed to be woven from shadows and starlight. Within it, cushions of impossible softness waited to cradle tired dreamers. The air here was different, thicker, more peaceful, as if peace itself had somehow been made tangible. It wrapped around Sarah like a warm embrace. An ancient dreamkeeper sat in the pavilion, her robes made from the same material as the night sky. Her hair was a cascade of silver that moved like water, and her eyes held all the restful darkness of a moonless night. She smiled at Sarah and gestured to a cushion nearby. "Rest here a while," the dreamkeeper suggested, her voice like distant wind chimes. "Let the garden's peace sink into your bones. There's no hurry, no schedule to keep. Time flows differently here. A moment can last an eternity, and an eternity can pass in the space between breaths." Sarah settled onto the cushion, which seemed to adjust itself to support her perfectly. Above the pavilion, the stars began to sing, not with sound exactly, but with pure feeling that translated itself into music somewhere between her ears and her heart. It was a lullaby as old as the universe itself, sung in the spaces between galaxies. The dreamkeeper began to weave starlight between her fingers, creating patterns that drifted through the air like cosmic jellyfish, each one carrying a different kind of peace. Some held the quiet of fresh fallen snow, others the tranquility of waves lapping at a distant shore. They floated past Sarah, each one sharing its gift of serenity as it passed. The glass-winged butterfly settled on a nearby flower that seemed to be made from crystallized moonlight. Its wings slowed their movement, matching the increasingly peaceful rhythm of Sarah's breathing. The garden itself seemed to be breathing with her now, everything moving in perfect, drowsy harmony. The words on the page began to drift like leaves on a quiet stream, each one carrying a bit more of wakefulness away with it. The story continued, but it was becoming harder to tell where the words ended and dreams began. Silence became a living thing in the midnight garden, a presence more substantial than sound, more alive than the shifting shadows that danced between starlight and dream. The dreamkeeper's hands continued to weave patterns of pure tranquility, each gesture creating ripples of impossible calm that spread outward like the gentlest of waves. "In the heart of stillness," she began, her words falling like soft petals. "There is a music that cannot be heard, only felt. It is the song of everything and nothing, the breath between moments, the space where rest is born." Sarah felt herself sinking deeper into the cushion, which seemed to be made of some impossible substance, part cloud, part memory, part pure comfort. Her body became weightless, yet simultaneously more grounded than she had ever been. Each breath drew her further from the world of sharp edges and urgent tasks, deeper into a realm where time lost all meaning. The pools around her began to shift. No longer were they distinct bodies of water, but rather living membranes of pure experience. The pool of quiet moments expanded, its surface becoming a landscape of infinite comfort. Sarah could see within it countless scenes of perfect rest: a cat curled in a patch of warm sunlight, a child sleeping with a beloved stuffed animal, an elderly couple holding hands in peaceful silence. Near the dreamkeeper, a collection of wind chimes began to move, though no wind touched them. They were crafted from materials that seemed to defy description. Some appeared to be made of crystallized moonbeams, others from threads of pure silence, and some from what looked like solidified memories. Each chime created a note that was felt more than heard, vibrations that seemed to speak directly to the deepest parts of consciousness. "Listen," the dreamkeeper whispered, though her lips did not move, "to the spaces between sounds." And Sarah did. She heard the silence between heartbeats, the quiet between thoughts. She heard the soft humming of cells regenerating, the whisper of dreams taking shape, the gentle rhythm of the universe breathing in and out. The glass-winged butterfly had transformed. No longer a distinct creature, it had become a shimmering presence that moved through the air like a thought, like a half-remembered melody. Its wings were now made of something between light and memory, casting soft patterns that seemed to tell stories without words. Surrounding the pavilion, the flowers began to change. They were no longer simply plants, but living repositories of peace. Each bloom contained entire landscapes of calm, mountain valleys at dawn, quiet forest glades, the moment just before rain begins to fall. Their petals moved in a dance so slow it was almost imperceptible, creating patterns of infinite gentleness. "Some dreamers," the dreamkeeper said, her voice a thread of silk, "spend lifetimes in a single moment of perfect rest. Here, in the midnight garden, time is not a line but a circle, not a progression but a presence." Sarah's consciousness began to drift, becoming as fluid as the dream pools around her. She was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, a consciousness without boundaries, a breath without a body. The book she had been reading seemed to dissolve, its pages becoming part of the garden itself, words turning into leaves, sentences becoming paths, paragraphs transforming into gentle hills. The starlight overhead began to pulse in rhythm with her slowing heartbeat. Each star told a story of rest, of healing, of the profound peace that exists beneath the surface of everything. They were not distant points of light, but close companions, whispering ancient lullabies that spoke directly to the soul. A blanket of pure quiet descended, not the absence of sound, but a living quiet that held everything. It was softer than the softest touch, more substantial than stone, more alive than breath. Within this quiet, Sarah discovered a stillness so profound that it contained entire universes of rest. The dreamkeeper smiled, a smile that was both an invitation and a benediction. Her hands continued to weave patterns of pure tranquility, each gesture a prayer, each movement a story of healing and peace. And in this moment, stretched between heartbeats, suspended between breaths, Sarah understood that she had always been here, that the midnight garden was not a place to visit, but a state of being, a home within herself, always waiting, always peaceful. The words on the page began to blur, to dissolve, to become something more than language, becoming pure experience, pure rest. Beyond stillness, there is something else. A place where silence becomes music, where darkness becomes light, where rest becomes creation. The boundaries between Sarah and the garden began to dissolve. She was no longer a visitor, but a living part of the midnight landscape. Her breath became the wind through silvered grasses. Her heartbeat, the distant rhythm of an underground stream. Her thoughts, the shifting patterns of cloudlight dancing across impossible horizons. The dreamkeeper's hands continued their eternal weaving, but now the threads were made of something more fundamental than light. They were spun from the very fabric of potential. Each gesture created worlds within worlds, universes breathing in soft, imperceptible rhythms. Here, the dreamkeeper spoke, though speaking was not quite the right word, for her communication transcended language. We remember what we have always known but forgotten in the world of sharp edges and urgent moments. The pools around her began to merge, their boundaries becoming permeable, fluid. No longer separate bodies of water, they became a living membrane of pure experience. Within their depths, Sarah could see everything and nothing, memories not her own, yet somehow intimately familiar. Moments of profound connection, instants of absolute peace stretched into eternity. Her consciousness expanded, becoming as vast as the spaces between stars, as intimate as the space between heartbeats. She was simultaneously the observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dream. Flowers nearby began to bloom in impossible colors, not colors that could be named or described, but colors that were emotions, that were memories, that were pure feeling made visible. Their petals moved in synchronicity with breath itself, creating mandalas of infinite complexity that dissolved and reformed with each passing moment. The glass-winged butterfly, no longer a distinct creature, but a living metaphor of transformation, dissolved into pure light. Its essence spread through the garden, becoming part of everything. The soft ground beneath, the shimmering air, the distant whispers of unknown melodies. Time ceased to have meaning, or perhaps time had always been an illusion, and this garden was the true reality, a place of eternal becoming, of infinite rest, of pure potential. Sarah understood, without words, without thought, that healing happens in these spaces between breaths. That true rest is not the absence of movement, but a profound alignment with the universe's most fundamental rhythms. The Dreamkeeper's robes began to merge with the landscape. Her form became translucent, then transparent, then something more than visible, a living presence that held everything in its infinite, compassionate embrace. Rest, she said, or perhaps the entire garden said it, or perhaps the message came from the spaces between stars. Rest is not something you do. Rest is something you are. And in that moment, Sarah became pure rest. Not Sarah as she knew herself with her job, her worries, her daily struggles, but Sarah as a fundamental expression of peace, a breathing cosmos, a living meditation. The book's pages continued to turn, though no hand touched them. Words appeared and dissolved, creating landscapes of pure possibility. Each sentence a universe, each paragraph a lifetime of peace. Starlight wove through everything, not as separate points of light, but as a living network of connection. Every star a memory, every memory a star. Time and space becoming a single, breathing entity of infinite gentleness. The Midnight Garden revealed itself as something more than a place. It was a state of being, a remembering, coming home, and Sarah rested, truly rested, for the first time. The words on the page began to dissolve, becoming pure light, pure potential, pure peace. Imagine a moment before the first breath, before thought, before beginning. There is a sound that is not a sound, a light that is not light, a feeling that precedes feeling itself. The garden, if garden it could still be called, became something beyond description. No longer a place, but a living pulse. No longer a space, but a frequency of pure comfort. No longer bound by the limitations of perception, but a breathing entity of infinite compassion. Threads of consciousness drifted like the most delicate silk, weaving themselves through realities too subtle to name. Each thread a story, each story a universe, each universe a single, soft breath. The Dreamkeeper was everywhere and nowhere. Her essence dissolved into the fundamental rhythm of existence. A heartbeat so slow it might take millennia to complete a single pulse. Within her being, entire civilizations could rise and fall between moments, and yet nothing would truly change. Memories became landscapes, thoughts became weather systems, emotions transformed into entire ecosystems of feeling, blooming and dissolving in patterns too complex for understanding, too gentle for resistance. As the Dreamkeeper's hands continued their gentle weaving, Sarah noticed something extraordinary beginning to happen around her. The garden was transforming, not dramatically, but with the subtle magic of a watercolor painting slowly coming to life. Scattered throughout the moonlit landscape, several new figures began to emerge. They were neither fully solid nor completely transparent, more like memories given form, each one dressed in soft, flowing robes that seemed woven from starlight and evening mist. These were the memory keepers, guardians of the most precious moments of human experience. Each figure held a different essence. One cradled the memory of a child's first laugh. Another preserved the feeling of a loved one's embrace. while a third held the quiet peace of a sunrise scene in perfect solitude. The eldest of the memory keepers approached Sarah. She was an ageless woman with silver hair that moved like liquid moonlight and eyes that held the depth of countless stories. Her name, when it formed in Sarah's mind, was simply compassion, not a name so much as a living essence. "We collect the moments people forget," the woman explained, her voice as soft as a summer breeze. "Not the grand events that fill history books, but the tiny, perfect instances of human connection. The moment a stranger smiles and restores hope. The quiet comfort of holding a sleeping child. The unexpected kindness that changes everything." Around them, the memory keepers began to share their collected moments. One showed Sarah a memory of an elderly couple holding hands in a quiet park, their love so tangible it seemed to glow. Another revealed a moment of unexpected friendship between two strangers who had helped each other during a difficult time. The glass-winged butterfly, now perched on a nearby flower made of crystallized moonlight, seemed to be listening intently. Its wings caught the light, creating intricate patterns that told their own silent stories.
"But why do you collect these moments?"
Sarah asked, her voice a whisper that seemed to blend perfectly with the garden's gentle sounds. The eldest memory keeper smiled. "Because these are the moments that truly define humanity. Not the conflicts, not the struggles, but the small, beautiful connections that happen every day. Each moment of compassion is a seed of hope. Each act of kindness is a light in the darkness." As she spoke, the memories around them began to float like luminescent bubbles, each one containing a complete story. Some brought tears, quiet tears of understanding and beauty. Others sparked joy so pure it felt like a warm embrace. Sarah realized that the Midnight Garden was more than a place of rest. It was a sanctuary of human experience, a living archive of the most profound moments of connection, love, and understanding. The Dream Keeper continued her silent weaving, and the Memory Keepers continued their eternal work of preserving the most delicate, most powerful moments of human existence. And Sarah understood, with a clarity that went beyond words, that true rest comes from recognizing the beauty that exists in the smallest, most unexpected moments of life. The garden breathed around her, soft, peaceful. As the Memory Keepers slowly faded back into the soft landscape of the Midnight Garden, a new wonder began to unfold. The terrain around Sarah shifted subtly, and she found herself walking toward a grove of trees unlike any she had ever seen before. These were the healing trees, each one a living tapestry of human resilience and restoration. Their bark was not rough wood, but seemed to be made of something between memory and light, shifting and shimmering with every gentle breeze. Leaves of the most delicate silver blue hung from branches that curved with impossible grace, each leaf holding what appeared to be tiny, swirling scenes of personal transformation. An old man stood near the first tree, his presence both ancient and timeless. Unlike the ethereal Memory Keepers, he felt more substantial, though no less magical. His hands were gnarled like tree roots, but moved with surprising gentleness as he tended to the nearest tree. "Healing is not about erasing pain," he said, seeming to know Sarah's unspoken questions. "It's about understanding, about finding the strength that grows from our most challenging moments." The first tree before him was extraordinary. Its trunk was translucent, like carved crystal, and within its core, Sarah could see intricate pathways of light that pulsed with a rhythm similar to a heartbeat. Each branch seemed to tell a different story of recovery and hope. Every tree in this grove, the old man explained, holds the journey of healing for those who have faced great challenges. Some carry stories of physical recovery, others of emotional restoration. Each is a testament to human resilience. He touched one of the silver-blue leaves, and it unfurled a memory. Sarah saw a scene of a young woman fighting through a serious illness, surrounded by love, her spirit unbroken. Another leaf showed a person finding hope after profound loss, learning to smile again. The glass-winged butterfly returned, settling on a branch near Sarah. Its wings now reflected scenes of transformation, metamorphosis captured in delicate, shimmering patterns. Healing is not linear, the old man continued. It's a spiral. Sometimes you return to the same place, but you're never exactly the same. Each return brings more wisdom, more compassion. Nearby, a small stream wound through the grove. Its water was unlike normal water. It seemed to be made of liquid light, each droplet containing a tiny spark of hope. Where it touched the ground, small flowers bloomed instantly, flowers of the most extraordinary colors, each petal holding a fragment of a healing story. Sarah realized she could hear the trees breathing, not with lungs, but with something more fundamental, a rhythm of growth, of persistence, of quiet strength. The leaves rustled with whispers of courage, of moments when people had chosen hope over despair. "Would you like to hear a story?" the old man asked, his eyes twinkling with a wisdom that seemed to contain entire universes. Before Sarah could answer, he began to speak. His voice was like the stream, fluid, gentle, carrying stories of remarkable human spirit. And as he spoke, the trees around them seemed to lean in, listening, their leaves catching the moonlight in patterns of infinite complexity. The healing grove breathed. Sarah breathed with it, and for a moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully whole. As the healing grove slowly faded behind her, Sarah found herself approaching a structure that seemed to be constructed from something between starlight and crystal. It rose from the midnight garden like a great observatory, its walls transparent yet somehow solid, its roof an ever-changing map of celestial wonder. The constellation chamber, as she instinctively knew it was called, stood as a sanctuary of cosmic memory. Its entrance was framed by two columns that appeared to be made of intertwined moonbeams and ancient stardust. The glass-winged butterfly preceded her, its delicate wings casting prismatic reflections that danced across the chamber's luminescent floor. An elderly woman stood at the center of the chamber, her hair a cascade of silver that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Unlike the previous guardians, she wore a robe that shifted between deep midnight blue and the soft gray of pre-dawn light. Around her, thousands of tiny lights, some resembling stars, others like captured fireflies, drifted in intricate patterns. "Each light is a story," the woman said, her voice as clear as a bell yet as soft as a whisper. "Not just any story, but a moment of profound connection. A time when someone reached out, when someone understood, when someone chose love." As she spoke, the lights began to move more deliberately. Some formed constellations that told tales of human kindness. Others swirled into intricate patterns that seemed to breathe with living emotion. Sarah watched, mesmerized, as one constellation took shape. It depicted a scene of a young boy helping an elderly woman cross a busy street. Another showed a group of strangers coming together to help someone in need during a moment of crisis. Each story of connection glowed with a warmth that seemed to fill the entire chamber with compassion. "We are never truly alone," the woman said, her hand making a gentle sweeping motion that caused the lights to dance more vibrantly. Even in our most isolated moments, there are threads of connection we cannot see. The floor of the chamber began to move, not physically, but in a way that Sarah could feel. It was as if the very ground beneath her feet was alive with understanding, with empathy. Soft waves of comfort rippled outward, each wave carrying whispers of support and connection. Near one wall, a massive constellation took shape, more complex than the others. It seemed to tell the story of human resilience through generations. Sarah could see moments of struggle transformed into moments of triumph, threads of hope weaving through what initially appeared to be darkness. The glass-winged butterfly alighted on a nearby crystal that caught and refracted the starlight, creating a miniature universe in its reflection. Its wings continued to tell their own silent story of transformation. Some connections, the woman continued, happen in a single moment. Others span lifetimes. Some are visible, others exist in the spaces between words, between breaths. A series of lights began to weave together, showing a tapestry of human experience. Moments of joy, of sorrow, of profound understanding, all interconnected, all part of a greater whole. Sarah felt something shift within her. It was more than understanding. It was a profound recognition of the invisible threads that connect all living things. The constellation chamber breathed around her, a living, pulsing testament to the power of human connection. Each light, each story, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, there is always a spark of hope. And in this moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully connected. As the constellation chamber dissolved around her, Sarah found herself standing beside a river unlike any she had ever seen. Its waters were not blue or clear, but a living, luminescent silver that seemed to flow with more than just water. Memories, emotions, and unspoken dreams moved within its currents, visible as fleeting images that danced just beneath the surface. The riverbank was lined with the most extraordinary trees, their trunks smooth and pale, their leaves a soft, shifting silver that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. The glass-winged butterfly had transformed once more, now appearing as a delicate navigation marker that drifted just above the water's surface. An old boatman stood beside a small vessel crafted from what appeared to be woven moonlight and river mist. His eyes held the depth of countless journeys, and his weathered hands moved with a grace that spoke of infinite patience. "The river of dreams," he said, not as a question but as a simple statement of fact, carries more than water. It carries the essence of human potential. Sarah approached the boat, noticing how it seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting slightly, as if alive. The boatman gestured for her to sit, his movement both an invitation and a promise of safe passage. As they began to drift, the river revealed its true nature. Beneath the surface, entire landscapes of human experience unfolded. Sarah saw moments of incredible beauty, a child's first steps, a moment of unexpected kindness, the quiet joy of true friendship. But she also saw moments of struggle, of pain transformed into strength. "Not all dreams are pleasant," the boatman explained, his voice as fluid as the river itself. "But every dream carries a seed of something beautiful. Even the most difficult journeys have moments of unexpected grace." The river's current carried them past landscapes that shifted and changed. One moment, they passed through a forest of memories, trees made of crystallized moments, each branch holding a different experience. Another moment, They drifted through a canyon of hopes, where unspoken wishes glimmered like distant stars. Occasionally, the butterfly would touch down on the boat's edge, its wings capturing and reflecting snippets of the dreams flowing around them. Sometimes these reflections were joyful bursts of laughter, moments of triumph. Other times, they were more subtle, a quiet moment of understanding, a sudden burst of hope in the midst of darkness. "We carry our dreams with us," the boatman said, "even when we don't realize we're carrying them. Some are light as a feather, some are heavy as mountains, but each one is valuable." The river began to sing not with words, but with a melody that seemed to come from the very heart of human experience. It was a song of resilience, of hope, of the incredible journey of being alive. Sarah realized she was no longer just observing the river. She was part of it. Her own dreams, some remembered, some long forgotten, flowed around her, mixing with the dreams of countless others. As they continued their journey, the boundaries between water and sky, between dream and reality, began to blur. The river became everything and nothing, a living testament to the power of human imagination and hope. The boat moved softly, the dreams flowed, and for a moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully possible. As the river of dreams gently dissolved around her, Sarah found herself standing before an impossibly vast library. Unlike any library she had ever seen, this structure seemed to breathe, its walls shifting between solid stone and translucent mist, its shelves stretching beyond the limits of vision. The Library of Whispers, as she somehow knew it was called, was unlike any repository of knowledge she could have imagined. Instead of books bound in leather and paper, the shelves held objects that seemed alive, crystals that contained entire stories, delicate glass spheres filled with swirling memories, leaves that told tales through their intricate veins. An librarian approached her, a figure both young and ancient, dressed in robes that seemed woven from twilight and morning mist. The glass-winged butterfly perched delicately on her shoulder, its wings catching the library's soft, ever-changing light. "Not all stories are written," the librarian said, her voice a gentle whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Some are felt. Some are remembered in the spaces between heartbeats. Some exist only in the moments we choose to listen." She reached out and touched a nearby crystal. It began to glow, revealing a story of quiet resilience, a woman who had overcome incredible challenges, not through grand gestures, but through small, daily acts of courage and kindness. The library's shelves moved of their own accord, some expanding, some contracting, creating pathways that seemed to invite exploration. Each pathway told a different kind of story. One corridor was lined with memories of joy, moments of unexpected laughter, of connection, of pure, unbridled happiness. Another held stories of healing, quiet moments of transformation, of pain slowly giving way to hope. "We collect the stories that are often overlooked," the librarian explained. "The moments between the moments, the breaths that connect one experience to another." Sarah noticed that some of the library's collections were alive in the most extraordinary ways. A shelf of autumn leaves told stories of change and letting go. A collection of river stones whispered tales of persistence, of water slowly reshaping the hardest surfaces through gentle, consistent movement. The butterfly on the librarian's shoulder began to move, its wings creating intricate patterns that seemed to tell their own story, a tale of transformation, of becoming, of the incredible journey from one state of being to another. Every story matters, the librarian continued, her hand moving across a shelf of what appeared to be liquid light. Even the smallest moment carries the potential to change everything. Kind word, a moment of understanding, a single breath of compassion. As she spoke, the library around them began to pulse with a soft, rhythmic light. It was as if the very walls were breathing, each breath carrying the collective stories of countless lives, countless moments of human experience. Sarah realized that this was more than a library. It was a living testament to the power of human experience, a place where every story, no matter how small, was honored and preserved. The shelves continued to move, creating new pathways, new connections. Memories drifted like soft clouds. Stories whispered their secrets. And for a moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully understood. As the library of whispers dissolved around her, Sarah entered a vast circular chamber that seemed to exist between reality and imagination. Here, the very air was alive with possibility, shimmering with threads of light that moved and breathed like living things. At the center of the chamber stood three figures, neither entirely human nor completely ethereal, each seated at an enormous loom that seemed to be woven from starlight and possibility. The looms were unlike any weaving device Sarah had ever seen. Their frames shifted and changed, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes transparent, sometimes seeming to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The glass-winged butterfly alighted on a nearby thread, its wings catching the chamber's soft, pulsing light. Each of the weavers worked with extraordinary concentration, their hands moving in a dance that was part craft, part meditation, part cosmic choreography. "We weave the connections that are not seen," said the first weaver, her voice like the sound of distant wind chimes. Her loom captured moments of human connection, a smile between strangers, a hand held in comfort, the silent understanding that passes between two people who have shared something profound. The second weaver's loom told a different story. Here, threads of potential drifted and merged, showing paths not taken, choices unmade, possibilities that existed in the quantum spaces between decisions. "Every moment," she explained, "contains 1,000 unborn futures." The third weaver worked with threads so delicate they seemed to be made of pure emotion. Her loom captured the most subtle of human experiences, a moment of unexpected compassion, the briefest flash of understanding, the tiniest seed of hope. "Humans believe their lives are linear," the third weaver said, her hands moving with impossible grace. "But time is more like this, a great tapestry where every thread touches every other thread." Sarah watched, mesmerized, as the looms created living landscapes. One moment, a thread would show a child's first step. The next, it would transform into an elderly person's moment of quiet reflection. Moments of joy, of pain, of profound transformation. All interconnected, all part of a greater design. The butterfly began to move between the looms, its wings leaving trails of light that became part of the weaving. Sometimes it would touch a thread, and entire stories would bloom, complex, beautiful, unexpected. "We do not create," the first weaver explained. "We simply reveal the connections that already exist. Every life touches every other life, in ways both seen and unseen." The chamber began to breathe, not with lungs, but with something more fundamental. The threads pulsed with life, with possibility, with the incredible complexity of human experience. Sarah realized she was not just watching the weaving. She was part of it. Her own life, with all its moments of beauty and challenge, was a thread in this vast, incredible tapestry. The looms continued their dance. Threads of light moved. Possibilities bloomed. And for a moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully connected. Something shifted. The weaving chamber dissolved like morning mist, and Sarah found herself in a space that defied description, a realm of pure potential, where silence was not the absence of sound, but a living, breathing entity. Here, silence had texture. It had depth. It had color, not the colors of the physical world, but colors of emotion, of memory, of unexpressed possibility. The glass-winged butterfly hovered nearby, its wings now so translucent they seemed to be made of pure light and intention. Around Sarah, the silence began to take shape, not with form exactly, but with presence. A figure emerged, or perhaps had always been there, waiting to be noticed. An ancient being whose body seemed to be made of the same substance as the silence itself. Neither male nor female, neither young nor old, the being radiated a compassion so profound it felt like the purest form of understanding. "You have traveled far," the being said, though no words were actually spoken. The communication happened somewhere between thought and feeling, a language more fundamental than words. Sarah realized she was experiencing something beyond movement, beyond thought. She was pure awareness, floating in an ocean of infinite potential. Most humans move through life like stones skipping across water, the being continued, touching the surface briefly, never understanding the depths beneath. But true understanding happens in the spaces between breaths, in the silence between thoughts. Around them, memories began to drift, not as images, but as living experiences. Sarah could feel the first time a child understood kindness. She could experience the moment an elderly person found peace after a lifetime of struggle. These were not memories to be remembered, but experiences to be understood. The silence continued to breathe. Waves of compassion moved through the space, not her compassion, not the being's compassion, but compassion itself as a living, fundamental force. Sarah understood, in a way that transcended understanding, that every moment of human experience was connected. Every act of kindness, every moment of struggle, every breath of hope, all part of a greater, more profound symphony. The butterfly's wings created soft patterns of light that told stories without words. Stories of transformation, stories of becoming, stories of the incredible journey of consciousness. "You are not separate," the being said, or perhaps the silence itself spoke. "You have never been separate. You are a wave understanding itself as the ocean." Sarah felt herself expanding, dissolving, becoming everything and nothing. The boundaries between self and universe grew soft, then disappeared entirely. Peace was not something to be found. Peace was the fundamental nature of existence. The silence continued to breathe, and in this moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully whole. Gradually, the infinite silence began to reshape itself. Colors returned, not the harsh colors of the waking world, but softer hues that seemed to breathe with their own gentle life. The glass-winged butterfly descended, its wings casting delicate patterns of light that danced like living memories. Sarah found herself standing in the central heart of the Midnight Garden. Here, everything she had experienced, the memory keepers, the healing grove, the river of dreams, the library of whispers, the weaving chamber, converged into a single, extraordinary space. At the center stood an ancient tree unlike any she had ever seen. Its trunk was translucent, revealing intricate pathways of light that pulsed like living blood vessels. Roots spread out in all directions, some visible, some existing in dimensions just beyond perception. Each root and branch seemed to hold entire universes of experience. The dream keeper from earlier approached, the woman with hair like liquid moonlight and eyes that contained infinite compassion. "This is the core of everything," she said, her voice a melody that seemed to arise from the tree itself. "The place where all stories meet, where all experiences become one." Around the tree, the landscape shifted continuously. Memories bloomed like flowers, some bright and joyful, others profound and complex. Moments of human experience drifted like leaves, each one a complete story, each one connected to every other moment. "Every experience matters," the dreamkeeper continued. "The moment of greatest joy, the moment of deepest sorrow, the breath between breaths, all of it is part of a greater symphony." The butterfly alighted on one of the tree's branches, and suddenly Sarah could see the interconnectedness of everything. A child's laughter in one part of the world connected to an elder's moment of peace thousands of miles away. A moment of kindness resonated across time and space, creating ripples of possibility. Roots of light began to extend, reaching out to Sarah, not threateningly, but with an invitation of understanding. She realized these roots were threads of connection, showing how every human experience, every moment of feeling, every breath was part of a greater whole. "Rest is not the absence of movement," the dreamkeeper said softly. "It is the understanding of your place in the great tapestry of existence. It is knowing that you are simultaneously insignificant and infinitely important." The tree began to sing not with sound, but with pure feeling. A song of hope, a song of connection, a song that held all of human experience in its gentle embrace. Sarah felt herself becoming part of the song, part of the tree, part of everything. And in this moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully alive. As the tree's song began to soften, Sarah felt a gentle transition happening. The magical landscape of the midnight garden began to dissolve, not with sadness or abrupt endings, but with the same fluid grace that had defined her entire journey. The dreamkeeper approached, her form becoming softer, more translucent. The glass-winged butterfly continued its delicate dance, leaving trails of light that seemed to connect past moments with future possibilities. "Every journey has its own rhythm," she said, her voice a whisper that contained entire universes. "Some are long and winding, some are brief but profound. Yours has been a journey of understanding." Around Sarah, the garden's magical elements began to merge, the memory pools, the healing trees, the constellation lights, the threads of human experience. They didn't disappear, but rather blended into a soft, luminescent mist that held all the wisdom she had discovered. The butterfly touched her hand, a gesture so light it might have been a thought, so profound it felt like a lifetime of understanding. In that touch, Sarah saw everything she had experienced, not as separate moments, but as a single, beautiful tapestry of existence. "You are taking everything with you?" the dreamkeeper explained, "not as a physical memory, but as a feeling, a deep, profound sense of peace that lives beneath your everyday experiences." The mist began to take the shape of her familiar bedroom, soft moonlight through the window, the comfortable weight of her blanket, the quiet sounds of the city outside. But this was not an ordinary return. The magic of the midnight garden continued to breathe around her, within her. Her breath became slower, deeper, more peaceful. The dreamkeeper's final words drifted like the softest of breezes. Rest is not something you do. Rest is something you are. Always. The butterfly's wings caught the first light of approaching dawn, casting delicate patterns across her room. And then, almost imperceptibly, it dissolved, becoming part of the morning light, part of the awakening world. Sarah's breathing continued, soft, slow, peaceful. And in this moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully at peace. When Sarah awoke, the first rays of morning light filtered softly through her bedroom window. The leather-bound book that had started her journey lay open on her nightstand, its pages now seemingly blank. Yet something had changed. Her body felt different, lighter, more at peace. The usual morning tension that typically gripped her shoulders was gone. Instead, a profound sense of calm radiated from somewhere deep within her. On her nightstand, almost imperceptibly, a single silver-blue leaf rested. Its edges shimmered with the faintest hint of moonlight, a delicate reminder of her journey through the midnight garden. When she touched it, she could feel the echo of the dreamkeeper's wisdom, a feeling more real than any memory. The glass-winged butterfly, or perhaps just a memory of its essence, seemed to have left the most subtle impression near the leaf. Promise. Connection. Sarah understood now that the midnight garden was not just a dream. It was a state of being, a place of rest that existed within her, always accessible, always waiting. Her breath continued, soft, slow, peaceful. And in this moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully alive.